Die hard, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was not good. But
All right. Welcome, everybody, to an extra special edition of the Sunbury Services Committee. October 16th, 2024. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Capel,
Here.
Ms. Dreyer. Here. Me.
Here.
Mayor St. John.
Here. Right. And I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from our October 2nd meeting. Can I have a second, please?
A second.
Second by Mayor St. John. Roll call.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Here. Yes.
Ms. Dreyer. Yes. Mr. Grumby.
yes,
We're all off at the random time of day and the wrong day of the month, so excuse us for the lack of protocol. And I guess we're discussing the street program tonight, correct? Right.
Good evening, and thank you for attending a special meeting. I realize that having one meeting a month is something that you guys prefer, and even though we're calling it special and you guys are happy to be here at 5:30, really appreciate you coming in so that we can continue the conversation about our street improvements and at least get some guidance as we get ready to apply for some grant funding. So I called this one Part 2, the 2025 Street Improvement Program. We have this map in the presentation 2 weeks ago. This is just showing overall the ratings for the streets within Sunbury. It's color coded again on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And I'm just showing this so that you have a general overview of the streets. The map you have in front of you, since it'll probably be easier for you to see, even though it's still going to be a little bit of an eye test for you, has this printout for the streets that we are proposing for next year's program. So with that, these are the streets that we want to include in that OPWC application, which is due November 1st. 2 weeks ago, I had included this, but I also included a bunch of other proposed future improvements. So to clean that up and to clarify, this is what we're looking for action on, and we need any immediate guidance or questions, concerns on these streets. There are also just 2 colors on this map. One being red, which is the color you primarily see, and that's for Milledgeville streets. That's typically what has been done for the street improvement program in Sunbury. So that's where they take just a couple inches off the top of the streets and then they replace just the surface. The cyan blue, you'll see 3 of those streets. Those all have those lower street values. All 3 of those are rated as 2s. So essentially, we're looking at going a little bit deeper, doing some base repairs and additional edge treatments in order to support those roads that are in a little bit worse condition. Here's the other slide that is very important. Along with street improvements, we're looking at doing at least 2 of these rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Both of these would be located around GRE, the elementary school. The picture that you have shows the location on Fairland Drive. This is the location based on communication with the school that they've identified as being one of their top priorities. But we've also heard comments about Heartland Meadows, that green rectangle. I've kind of showcased a whole area that we'd like to take a look at, but just from a preliminary evaluation by the city administrator and myself, we're thinking it's going to end up being a little bit further down towards that Millstone Drive intersection, since it appears that's where the students are crossing. But we'll take a closer look, and then in order to get this done, we'll need to get a final design so that we can get these moving. I also had a note up here just letting you guys know that components for these RRFBs are sometimes on back order. So there may be an opportunity for us to take remaining funds from this year's program, pre-order the materials, and then include the construction and the work as part of the street program. We'll include all of it in the application for OPWC. And then here's the other slide that I know had a little bit of confusion. So I went through, took out some of the numbers for streets that we had removed and updated the numbers based upon, the final recommendation. You can see this total value here has the program cost plus the contingency, and then all of the items in the green box above. So design, construction inspection, and then we'll be bidding out South Vernon right now as an alternate. So all of those are included in that $1.45 thousand to equal that 1.3 million total. If you take out the 300 and the $100,000 for the OPWC applications, that's where we land at the local funds. Just a reminder about the due date for the grants. That yellow highlighted box, that's the deadline that we're up against. So having at least guidance and the okay to move forward, we'd like to have that so that we can actually finalize the application. We've just barely began to touch on it, but we know in order to meet that deadline, we need to get that finalized very quickly.
Can I ask a quick question? And I was
Sure.
doing math when I'm sure you said it. What's the 145 again? The 145,000?
Yep, so this top, the green box at the very top, it has 70,000 for design services, construction inspection. All of those are going to be included. And you typically just don't see it in the construction estimate. So the black box includes more of the construction breakdown, and sometimes the design and inspection are afterthoughts. And I just wanted to make sure that we included it so that you guys could get a holistic cost estimate of all the funds that will be spent on streets.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. And then I had, this was one of the last slides that I had 2 weeks ago. So we didn't really get a chance to look at any of the streets. They are in order of their PACER ratings. So if I can click through this slowly and kind of show you what the streets look like. But essentially the streets that we are recommending for these improvements next year are rated 2, 3, 4. And we're looking at doing primarily the preventative maintenance, that mill and fill technique, just with some additional improvements as well. We will have a contingency, so a little bit of money put aside for stormwater improvements. That's a typical component of the streets program. So if you can imagine ponding along the side, we'll be able to treat some of that with edge treatment improvements and just by improving the condition of the road. And then any of the streets that were removed, but also potential for this next year, we'll be working with our public works team to look at doing some crack sealing. They also have the ability to do some patching, some essentially larger patches like pothole fills in order to extend the life of some of those streets as we reevaluate and start looking 2, 3, hopefully up to 5 years out, and really start looking at how we're projecting our streets program in the future. And that was my last slide. Under 15 minutes.
Under 15 minutes. Good job. Can you go back to the very first slide that shows the conditions of the existing streets? Okay. Yeah,
This one?
that one. So, so just one thing I think I would point out is as I went through and kind of circled the streets that are proposed for improvement, really it does cover the ones that, as Carla's indicated, are the in the worst condition. The one exception being Columbus Street, and that's the one again, and Middleview Drive, I guess, and Southview Drive. So I did just want to note that again, those are streets that have a lower rating. We talked a little bit about a more strategic or comprehensive plan associated with that. I just wanted to at least call that out that But that's really maybe of all the conditioned streets, that's the one that's probably going to need the most attention by our service team to kind of get us to the next point when we're ready to design and submit to OPWC.
Yes.
You mean the dark red?
Well, it's kind of a brownish, I think. Yeah, it's
Oh, the
got
whole-
different ratings along the way. Parts of it have been,
Section southwest Greenville to our limits, and then we have a section that is in decent condition just north of West Greenville and Square, and then all the way up to 3. That definitely had some potholes. I was out there with Jake, and he had given a recommendation that he could look at it with his team and spend some time out there to extend the life if we want to do something more comprehensive out there. Or we can look at it and say, we want to do something, maybe we end up doing it 5-6 years, and then we end up putting it on a program sooner. All of these are things I'm hoping to talk to you further about without any special meetings.
I think this is good. I think this is what I expected, and I think the exclusions make sense as well. The Morning Street gonna have the heavy construction traffic on it, so that makes sense. We just had our streetscapes working group earlier this week. I do think there's interest in looking at
Mhm.
Columbus Street as kind of an early target for not just safety, but streetscaping concerns. It's actually a really great opportunity for it because it stretches the whole length of the city, so you could have a gradual build up towards the core of the city. So I really like that strategy, and this was what I wanted to see coming in tonight. Do we have a clear idea of what's getting dropped if we don't get OPWC funding? Is there a set package that we're gonna roll with if we don't get that 400,000?
So we haven't pulled out the streets yet for that, but essentially we would look for the best of the worst to delay those streets. That would be our strategy. We are hopeful that since we weren't awarded the funding last year, that will be part of the consideration, but a lot of it just depends on the strength of the package. Having the RFBs, those flashing beacon crossings, is something that's going to help our score. So I
And that
feel
was my
very
follow-up,
confident that
yeah.
we will get funding, but it's true, you do never know, and we will be able to non-perform streets if needed and direct public works over there for
Okay.
maintenance.
So regardless, we're leaving the safety concerns in. The crosswalks are a definite yes. Okay, great.
Unless you tell me otherwise, tonight, it is the plan to move forward with that. Anytime I talk to anyone about those RFBs, they seem very excited, particularly the school when we went to observe the crossing locations.
I think it's an interesting idea too, if we've got the funding already this year to purchase them up front, if that can be arranged, every little bit helps, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Other questions?
I
I've
have
got
a
a-
few, but go ahead.
No,
No,
go ahead.
yeah, please. Insist.
Does this also include, you had mentioned the stormwater, on alongside the roads? Does that stormwater involve or include some of the drains? Because there are some drains that have sunk way down low below the street and below some driveways that are right alongside some of the main streets. And they've not been addressed, or they have, but it's still an issue.
Yes. So some of those storm grates that you can see the cones sitting on out throughout the city that we've identified need to be repaired. We were hopeful to do some of those repairs this year. And we've been told by our contractor that it would be something that, since it wasn't included in the original agreement, they would be passing on the work this year. But yes, because we have a contingency item in there for stormwater, those grates will be included as well. At least that's the plan right now, assuming we get funding, so that we can continue to do the work. But the stormwater improvements will also include a closer look at the roads, because at this point we are applying for grant funding. None of the design work has gone into the streets, so there will be another look to see if there's any additional work stormwater related that needs to be done.
Do you have any other questions? I just had a few. On Fairland Drive, can we go to that slide?
The picture of the streets?
Yes, please. This is pretty far along and sorry, Fairland Drive, the one with the crossing beacon.
Oh, gotcha.
location.
Yep.
I know the engineering is at least like somewhat down the line and there's been surveying done. I remember the beacon on Fairland being on the west side because of the sidewalk. Is that the reason that location was selected?
Yes, so that's part of the reason, when we looked at this location, I believe, that we also had, concerns about visibility with this tree. You can also see here, so I believe it hasn't been finalized, but we will have to remove trees, and we felt these were a little bit, it might be a little bit more, might make more sense than removing the one over here. But yes, because the sidewalks are over there and it's on, as you go to the school, it's on the same side, that way they don't have to cross twice. However, depending upon from which direction they're coming, they may have to cross additional drives.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention. The majority of the people walking across the street, like the problem we're trying to solve for is the apartments to the school. I think that's at least the main concern that I've heard. And they're gonna have to cross the apartment drive anyways, which isn't a marked crosswalk, whereas the school drive is a marked crosswalk. It's paint there, I believe now. At least there's a stop bar there.
Yeah, there.
Okay, so that location is final on the west side or it is not final?
It's final and is, I believe, close to 70 to 80% designed.
Right.
So, if they were going to look and consider a different location, it would probably delay. But just standing out there, I felt pretty good about this location. Of course, talking about the apartments in this direction, but as you go further down with the neighborhoods, there are a lot of kids that don't necessarily come all the way up here and walk down the sidewalk. It's a large open grass area right here, and people and their parents just walk right across. So if there is a flashing crosswalk, it may encourage them to come up here to cross and then go down to their, to wherever they live. Otherwise, I saw them down, there's another intersection further down, and that's where some of them were crossing.
All right, thanks. On Cheshire Drive, again, this may be a question that's too late, but just, I guess, if we're gonna pave a road, I think it's a good idea to kind of look at what Molly was mentioning, those storm drains, but we also just did the sidewalk assessment, and in that area where we're paving is part of the area that's missing sidewalk. I mean, I feel like historically, we've just been like blocking and tackling. And I think we need to start running like the spread offense and like seeing the whole field. So, I mean, if we're in an area, to use another, expression, if we've got the hood up, like, let's fix the problem while it's there. I mean, people don't want to see back-to-back years or multiple years of construction in front of their yards. So, that was just one where I'm like, I mean, if there's any opportunity to just add, the 25 feet of sidewalk in front of those houses and it's not going to delay the whole project or something, I think we need to look at that.
Yeah, I agree. That's the best time and the least expensive time for a contractor to come in and to do that work. And with that in mind, depending upon the location and whether or not the street is residential or has more traffic volume, like a collector arterial, and we get into whether or not the owners of the property, since sidewalks are owned by the property, being able to save people money if we determine that an assessment would be needed for certain locations. I'm not saying that would be needed for Cheshire necessarily, but it's just a policy that we would need to work through to make sure we're all on the same page with, when the city installs it versus when a resident is responsible for it.
How does that work if we install it after the fact? Obviously, owner is responsible for it when they buy a property and it's off there, but I don't know that we've built a sidewalk on the property that didn't have one.
Yeah, I think that's what she's alluding to. We probably just need to be, I
So
think,
we need to
be
get
clear
clarification still.
about,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there may be, not maybe, there are times when it would be, in the public interest to add a sidewalk
Right.
for whatever reason. In this particular case, it connects to a school. It's going to actually have that new neighborhood, the Kintner Crossing neighborhood with a path that gets you to Cheshire. So again, that may qualify as a high enough public purpose that you'd want the city to do that particular one. Where if most of the benefit, accrues to the property owner, that's one that is privately funded. So maybe we just need to kind of articulate that a little bit more here.
Yeah, and it can be, I've seen it in many different ways. Go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to add is, Mayor, I don't think that looking at that delays us in any way, because you really haven't begun the design on it. I mean, we've got some high level estimates of what the road improvement is going to be. But I think we could absolutely look at that sidewalk component without it affecting the timing of the application.
No, I agree. We could probably look at it, and with that in mind, if we're concerned about the pricing, if we could always bid it out as an ad alternate and basically look at it and say, okay, are we still within our budget? Should we award it? And that's something we can bring to council and services for approval to say, okay, this is what we could approve, but it looks like it's within budget or over budget. And then you guys will have the final say on what gets done.
The examples on Cheshire Road, just to be very specific, in front of the single family homes, that is within the right of way.
Mhm.
So I mean, I hope that should at least like cross one of the toll gates. We're not like taking somebody's property, even though they may think it's their property because their
Mhm.
driveway is on it and things like that. I mean, that's, a misnomer, if you will. So,
It's more that I could see somebody saying, well, look, the city built a sidewalk in front of my house that
right.
I'm responsible to maintain now.
Sure.
So I could see that being a sticking point for people. but
Or the
yeah.
city paying for one and not paying for somebody else.
These are the exact conversations I've had with sidewalks in the past.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know of one city, what they did, and this is a long plan, but for every property that got sold, the new buyer had to put in the sidewalk.
Yes. I've seen that done. I've also seen where if somebody does any sort of needs a permit from the city and their side of the street has some sidewalk and they're part of a gap, in order to approve that permit, they have to install the sidewalk. I've also seen certain distances from the schools. If you live in this distance, we want it to be walkable, and anytime there's a permit or an improvement. Or we could designate school areas as the city will fund those because of safe routes.
But the apartments too.
or we
The
go for grant
apartments,
funding. There are a lot of things to consider with sidewalks, and I'm sure that'll be another discussion point, and we'll be looking at building a policy. Grant, if you remember, the intern did a fantastic presentation for the evaluation that was done. So we have a good starting point. We also have that Safe Streets for All grant funding. So we're looking at safety improvements involved with different modes of transportation around the city. So kind of merging those two together and then looking at a policy. Daryl, our city administrator is writing it down.
Thank you.
Daryl, I think you wanted to mention the OPWC funding for 3Bs and a K.
I do. So I just want to, so we will have this on the council agenda this evening for consideration. But as a reminder, there are actually going to be two applications or two ordinances on the agenda regarding OPWC application. So the other one is one that's being proposed by the Delaware County Engineer's Office. It's an improvement at 3Bs and a K road. It ends up being about 2 miles worth of mill and fill improvements, of which less than half of hundreds, I don't know, 0.03 miles of that is in the city of Sunbury. So they've asked if we'll be a partner with them in that application. They're asking for a match from the city of up to $1,000. That's what we'd have to sign on to basically get it submitted. But in the packet here, they actually have us at $455 or something like that. So again, feel like that would be a wise investment for us to make to get 3Bs and a K improved with the help of the Delaware County folks, so. And the Berkshire Township team as well.
Good price just to be a reasonable local partner with the
Yeah.
other governments, right?
Yeah, so not just, again, just so you're not confused about why there are two ordinances on the agenda. Yeah.
All right. Good. Do we have anything for the good of the order? I don't recall anything else being on our agenda for tonight. Are there any other updates, Daryl?
No, unless there are questions, but we wanted to keep this focused on streets.
Maybe we could just, I mean, while we have the time, just talk maybe a little bit about Sunbury Parkway, and they're in the final stages of the environmental assessment. They just sent that out for final comment. So this is ODOT, and more or less like the plan is as fully baked as it can get without having like the final approval. Plan is to go to bid next year, and then I believe begin construction on phase A next year. So I think that's relative to this particular committee, knowing that the entire roadway outside of like the on ramps and off ramps are going to be within the city bounds.
I know we've been talking about it, the time that I've been here, and you guys were talking about it long before I ever arrived. So, it's great to see that it's on the verge of becoming a reality.
Right.
So,
Is it still a projection, still 7, 8, 9, 10 years from start to finish to make it all the way in?
I haven't seen an updated phasing plan from ODOT, but yeah, the last one I saw basically did have a 10-year build out.
Yeah, I saw 2035 was the last phase to begin. So, I mean, I think like maybe opening in 27 and then finishing in 37, maybe.
There'll be some retirement homes along that stretch. I'll need.
Well, while we're on the topic of roads too, I think the last time I was out there, the crosswalk button and that starts the signal to walk from Granville across Route 3 is broken.
Okay. Which side of the road? The Ace Hardware side?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
The button itself, not like the.
can't push it, it won't, it doesn't, I don't know if it senses your hand or not.
Yeah, should beep, I think, when you
It-
touch it.
Yeah,
It
you should have like a
should.
little indent. You put your thumb over and then it's supposed to
Beep,
go
beep, beep,
beep.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little red light comes on, but
Yeah.
not even the red light comes on anymore.
Let me have blocked your thumbprint.
I love this.
There.
Get her.
All right. Any other?
I just have one other thing while I'm thinking about it. I think about this stuff all the
Yeah.
time when I'm driving or walking. Do we have the Sunbury owned trail system mapped in our GIS? Not yet.
It is on the list that CT has to build out that layer. But it's my understanding it is not completed, but we did just have an update meeting to look at where we stand with our GIS. So later this week, I'll be going through and looking at the assets along with Alex and Daryl to see exactly what we have mapped and then help prioritize. So if that's one of the top priorities for this group, please let me know.
I don't know if it's a top priority, but I would say it's like a focus area. When I walk trails, I question, whose maintenance responsibility it is. The GRE Woods one in particular, there's tree roots that are starting to bend the pavement. I just think of, crack sealing, we've got the equipment. If we can get it into the trail system, that's going to prolong the life. And ultimately, that's probably got the same lifespan as a road, right? I mean,
Yes.
15 years or thereabout. So a lot of these trails are kind of starting to get up there in age. And just, on record, I guess, we're liable if we don't do something. So I think it is a focus area, but
Yeah.
maybe not the highest priority.
Yeah, but I'll check with Jake because in fact, we had talked about that. He was going to go out and do crack sealing on that trail. So that was one of the things we were trying to accomplish this year. So he hasn't gotten out there yet, but let me see if we can figure out what his schedule is looking like.
I was there Sunday and he hadn't, but he may have done it yesterday or today.
I doubt that. Given the weather, I doubt that. So, yeah.
Oh, are you sure? Don't let me do any longer. I'll come up with more.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn then.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Grumney,
So move.
second by Mr. Ayer. Roll call.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
Turned.
Thank you. First thing.